We're like in the guest bedroom right now. I've never filmed in here before, but the thing is, this is like the farthest room from like the house upstairs, so like no one can hear me in here. This is the first time in a while that I filmed during like the daylight, because for vlogs and stuff I obviously do sometimes like film in the day, but like for videos like this I normally film them at night when people are going to sleep. Also, I'm hoping you won't be able to hear footsteps in here. I've never filmed in this room, so we're testing it out today. So today we're going to be filming a fantasy books you should read this fall sort of video. I tried to pick fantasy books that give me like that fall feeling, you know? So I believe I have 28 books on this list, so this is going to take a while. I wrote like little descriptions of each book. I don't know if you can see that because of the light, but it's just like 2 to 4 sentences each, so hopefully that will make the video go by a bit quicker. Fantasy books are like the best books to read during the fall time in my opinion. I was like a hardcore fantasy reader when I first started out reading, so I literally read fantasy books whenever I could. But anyways, let's get started, shall we? So the first one we have is Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong. I just finished this book like yesterday. We have our main character Calla, and Calla is asked by her cousin Prince August to kill the king of San-Air. And then our second main character Anton is desperate to wake his past lover from a sickness that can't be cured. To complete both their tasks, Calla and Anton enter in a death game that will potentially give them the opportunity to get what they need, but only one of them can win. So at the beginning of this book, they like don't know each other. They both have like connections to the palace because Anton's family sort of used to be a part of the royal council until they got murdered. I don't know, they just have that connection, but they never met each other when they were both like residents in the palace. And so they meet each other during these death games, and you might think this is like a Hunger Games romance, and I guess you wouldn't be wrong, but also in a way it's so different. I feel like whenever a death game is mentioned in a book, we always compare it to like the Hunger Games, but this feeling is like so different from the Hunger Games because it's set in like the future where tech is like very advanced. They're not set in like a forest or anything that's on the verge of killing them. They're set in like this city, and they can do whatever they want until they need to go kill other players. There's also this side romance in here. I love side romances in fantasy books and like when there's multiple romances in general, but there's like a romance between a prince and his bodyguard in this book, and that was the romance I was most obsessed with. There's also a body switching magic system where they can control people's bodies by jumping into them. I became too obsessed with the romance that I forgot to explain. Whoops. Next one we have is Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. So every generation, 3 sisters, 3 queens are born, and each sister is born with magical ability that may help them in the future, because when they come of age, they have to be well trained and well prepared to kill each other and battle for like the kingdom's throne, because only one of them can be queen. This book gave off like really dark fantasy vibes when I first read this. It's been a while since I read this, so I can't like fully remember, but I also remember liking the romances in this book. There's multiple because you get the perspective of each sister, so it just makes it more interesting because it's just like you get to see their thought process on like how they're trying to murder each other. Dark fantasy books always seem like so fun to read in like the fall time, and this was like one of the fantasy books that got me into reading when I first started out. I found it to be really enjoyable, so I hope other people will enjoy this too, because I feel like this book series is really underrated. Next one we have is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. Oh my god, I love the subplot romance in this series. We have Blue Sergeant, and she's been told that if she kisses her first love, he will die. And then there's also a boy named Gansey who has been looking for a long dead king. So when Blue sees Gansey's spirit, Gansey isn't like dead, but for some reason Blue just randomly sees his spirit in a field. Forces sort of begin to tug her towards the Raven Boys, which is like Gansey's group of friends, and all their fates become intertwined in the search for the king. Honestly, you might have no idea what's going on in this book. It's like completely vibes, and then like so many cute subplot romances in here, and one of them you might expect if you see coming, but also if you're not paying attention you might not expect it at all. But the romance I really loved in this book is like between Blue and like one of the Raven Boys. I'm not gonna tell you guys which one, because the thing I find most fun about subplot romances is like seeking out which one is the main love interest. This one we have is One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. This was the first Olivia Blake book I ever read, and honestly love her writing so much. So we have the Antonovas and the Fedorovs, and they're 2 rival witch families, and after years of tenuous coexistence, one family member brutally crosses the line, causing a rift in the stalemate. At the same time, fate sort of intervenes with a romantic chance encounter between enemies. So like one member from each family somehow manages to meet, and they kind of don't know that they're each a part of like the enemy families, so it's just like sort of secret identity in the beginning, secret enemies to lovers, and it was so good. Also, not to mention the fact that there were like small romances here and there with different characters in this book. I think this is also based off of like Romeo and Juliet. Next one we have is a really popular one actually, but I feel like this is a good time to read it during the fall time because it's like very adventurous and like you don't have to think about it too much. It's very easy to read, which I don't know, just gives off fall to me for some reason. Not to mention there's dragons in this book. If you couldn't guess, it's Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. So we have our main character Violet, and she's desperate to become a scribe until her mother forces her into the trials for dragon riders, being extremely undertrained and having only information to rely on. Violet has to sort of conquer difficult challenges and try not to die, obviously, especially when she meets her supposed mortal enemy. It's kind of an enemies to lovers. I get the feeling he liked her like really soon when it came to this book. Also, the dragons in this book, I don't know why, but I love them so much. It did really remind me of like How to Train Your Dragon, but only because of the fact that they're supposed to become dragon riders. Next one we have is Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. So after her home is attacked, Yumiko has to deliver an important scroll to the next temple. She runs into this warrior named Tatsumi who is also looking for the scroll. So keeping her identity as a kitsune, which is like a fox spirit, she has to keep that a secret while also hiding the scroll, because Tatsumi in the beginning of the book is kind of like on the other side. So I guess they're also supposed to be enemies in a way. But because Yumiko is like, I know where the scroll is going, she doesn't exactly tell him that she has the scroll. She kind of tricks Tatsumi into protecting her on her journey towards the next temple, which I found really funny. Kind of also like a grumpy sunshine trope in here. Yumiko being the sunshine, Tatsumi sort of being like the forced grumpy, because he is kind of forced to suppress his emotions. He also has like this demon inside of him, like literally. I also just love romances where they go on a journey. I feel like it's so fun. Next one we have is Caravel by Stephanie Garber. So our main character Scarlet has always dreamt of attending the legendary competition known as Caravel, and her sister Tella somehow manages to get tickets to this event, and with the help of a man named Julian, they also manage to run away to Caravel. But when they get there, Tella is kidnapped, and in order to find her sister, Scarlet must win the games, because apparently the games this particular year revolve around Tella. There's obviously like a romance in here between Scarlet and Julian, and I wouldn't say it's like the slowest burn ever, but it's kind of just those two figuring out how to navigate the games. And also this world is really interesting because it does really feel like a carnival. The subtle magic in this world makes it really interesting. Also, the man who runs the games is like kind of a secret in this world. No one knows who he is, no one knows what he looks like. This one we have is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. Love these books so much, mostly because of like the subplot romance, also the side romance in here between like the prince and I think it was a pirate or something, could be really wrong about that. So in this world there are 4 different Londons. Only magicians like Kel can travel to them, but one day Kel gets himself into trouble with the one London he was supposed to avoid, and in order to solve his problem he has to team up with a girl from a different London, Lila. Love Lila so much. I feel like she's such a fun female main character. I also just feel like the magic system in this book is also really cool, because like the fact that there are magicians out there that can travel to like sort of different dimensions, those different Londons, and you can tell that when a character has an experience they sort of learn. Like Kel, I liked when he learned like a different magic sort of move, he used it, and then the way him and Lila meet, I think Lila pickpockets him. Also the prince and his romance, I loved it so much, because it was just like, why did his love interest leave at the time sort of thing. This one we have is This Savage Song by V.E. Schwab. So in this world, 2 sides of the same city are at war with monsters overrunning it. Our first main character, Kate, is a human who wants to be ruthless. Our second main character, August, is a monster who wants to be human. After a failed assassination attempt, Kate and August must flee for their lives together, despite the fact that they're supposed to be enemies. I don't know why I love this romance so much. I know I keep talking about the romances in books, but it's like mostly the thing I seek out in fantasy books. I loved August so much too, because he was so complex. Like as a monster, he wasn't supposed to feel human emotions, but he still tried to imitate them. And then I guess Kate was just trying to show him that he is human in his own way. I don't really know how to explain it, because it was kind of like a forbidden romance in a way between like a human and a monster. And also the fact that in the beginning it was sort of like secret identity, because they didn't know who each other was when they first met, because they had to both attend a school or something. I think August might have been like hunting her down, or maybe Kate was hunting August down. It could have gone either way, not gonna lie, but they fully did not know each other when they first met. They became sort of like acquaintances or friends and like had these little meetings at the bleachers, and I love those parts so much. It was probably my favorite part of the first book. Next one we have is Gallant by V.E. Schwab. So Olivia has grown up in a girls' school all her life until one day a letter for her says to come home to Gallant, but when she arrives no one is expecting her, and until Olivia figures out the secrets of Gallant, she's not leaving anytime soon. So she's trying to figure out like who sent the letter and why they sent it. Gallant is a very sort of dark world. It's like sort of part of the outside world, but at the same time it's like in its own little globe in a way. There was no romance in this book. It was more just like found family, which I found really cute. Kind of got unexpectedly attached to the characters. Normally I like fantasy books with a little romance in it, but this kind of an exception in a way. Next one we have is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. Our main character Theodora has lost half of her soul, making her seem emotionless. When she travels to London, she hopes to be a quiet, sensible wallflower, but when a handsome sorcerer named Elias appears, she's instead attracted to the mysterious affairs of fairies, because Elias studies fairies in a way and like studies the sicknesses that come from fairies to help other people. Oh my god, their romance though, it was like the cutest thing. This is like such a cozy fantasy book. I seriously can't get over the romance though. Like it was the best thing in this book. Not to mention like their sort of banter. Like Elias was the sort of icy grumpy type in the beginning, and like obviously obviously Dora seems emotionless, but at the same time, she's like so fun in a way. Like that sort of deep hidden personality of hers that you kind of have to dig up and like get to know her. And that's exactly what Elias did. This one we have is The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. So Araya is the adopted human daughter of the Vampire King, and she's sort of desperate to become his equal. So Araya enters a dangerous tournament where the prize is a wish granted by a god, and she quickly discovers winning won't be easy. So Araya is forced to team up with a vampire named Rain. Oh my god, there was one side character in this book that I absolutely loved, and I think she's getting her own book soon, which I'm so excited for. Not to mention Carissa Broadbent's writing is so good. I like that she didn't information dump too much in the first book. The romance in here was obviously devastating. It was so good. This one we have is The Vampire Academy by Richelle Mead. So I know what you're thinking. This book is kind of old. Why would I be recommending it? Well, since Halloween is coming up soon, I felt like the vampire aspect was appropriate. So Rose is a half vampire, half human who is dedicated to protecting her best friend Lisa. And after 2 years of freedom, Rose and Lisa are caught and taken back to their academy. But even inside the school, enemies are pretty much everywhere. And Rose is desperate to escape once again to protect Lisa. Except they have like a bunch of bodyguards now because people are obviously afraid they're gonna try to escape again. The side romance in here between like Lisa and like another vampire, oh my god, I forget his name, but it's just like, it was sort of a forbidden romance, but also like an unexpected one. Rose has like a romance with another bodyguard, so it was like a bodyguard and bodyguard sort of romance. Also like age gap, sort of. It was like not the biggest age gap, but also sort of big. Next one we have is A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid. So Effie has been haunted by the Fairy King since childhood, and the only thing keeping her afloat is her favorite book. When her favorite author asks her to redesign his old manor, Effie jumps at the chance, obviously, but due to its poor condition, the manor and its residents seem far from welcoming, including a young scholar named Preston, and obviously they have the slowest burn romance. I really did like the romance in this book though. I feel like it was my favorite part. And also just this world, it gave off like very dark academia, which again seems very appropriate for fall. Next one we have is A Far Wilder Magic by Alison Saff. So one of our main characters, Weston, is desperate to become an alchemist, and in order to do so, he needs to find a teacher. But when Weston knocks on Margaret's door, who is our second main character, he's looking for her mother, but when she's not there, obviously his hopes of finding a teacher come crashing down. Margaret allows him to stay at her house, but on one condition: enter the half moon hunt with her, and her mother will teach him alchemy, because Margaret's mother has sort of been missing for a while, so she thinks if she enters in the half moon hunt and like proves to her mother that she's strong and independent or something, then her mother will return. This is also like a pretty good slow burn romance. This is also based off of the anime Full Metal Alchemist. Pretty good anime, so I do recommend it. It just gives you a bit more insight on how like the magic system in this world works if you do watch the anime. This one is A Number in the Ashes by Sabathir. I read the first 2 books really recently. Love this series so much. Our first main character, Leia, is a scholar who's looking to save her kidnapped brother, but in order to do that, she needs to sneak into the Marshall Academy, where scholars are never welcome. And then Elias is a marshal, but is looking to escape his violent world. When Leia meets Elias, they discover that their choices will change the fate of the Empire, because scholars in this world are being oppressed, and like the marshals are the one doing the oppressing. Elias is not okay with that. So obviously when these two meet, they hope to change things. Their romance in the first book, it was like really subtle, which I really liked. Next one we have is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This is also like a cozy fantasy sort of. Emily Wilde is studying fairies and is determined to finish her book. In order to do so, she has to visit a small village near the Fae and to talk to the people. Oh, the light just suddenly dimmed. Anyways, Emily isn't exactly fond of people, and that includes her academic rival Wendell, who frustrates her when he immediately charms the townspeople. Honestly, I think the thing I could relate the most to when it came to like Emily's personality was like not being social. I think Wendell and Emily's interactions were definitely my favorite part of the book. The Fae world was also definitely interesting. Seeing Emily sort of open up to the townspeople, I found to be really cute. The townspeople eventually accepting her too. Love that part. The next one we have is Not Even Bones by Rebecca Schaefer. So our main character, Nita, helps her mother dissect dead supernaturals and sells their body parts on the black market. But when her mother brings home a live specimen, Nita decides she wants out. When she tries to save her mother's victim, Nita is betrayed and ends up being sold to the black market, which is like a crazy situation to be in. There is a romance. It was kind of like a Beauty and the Beast romance, I want to say, you know, like the captor and then the prisoner sort of thing. But also this world was really interesting, and I liked the different creatures. They brought out like different supernaturals that kind of related to like old mythological stories in a way. I saw a comparison too where it was like this book is kind of a mix of like Dexter and then This Savage Song by V.E. Schwab. This one we have is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillick, another dark fantasy book. When our main character Elspeth meets the captain of the guard, she joins a quest to find 12 magical cards to help cure the kingdom of its infection. But while there is undeniable attraction between Elspeth and the captain, Elspeth worries the literal monster inside her head will take over her mind before their quest is complete, because she actually has like this monster that's able to communicate with her in her head. And it's really interesting because if I'm being honest, the monster was actually my favorite part of the book, and just like their little conversations they had every now and then. Next one we have is Fable by Adrienne Young. So Fable is the daughter of the most powerful trader in the Narrows and hopes to one day join his crew. It's been years since her father abandoned her, and now she has to rely on her newly acquired skills to survive. But in order to reach her father, she hires a trader named West to get her off the island. There is a subplot romance in here. It is like a world with pirates, and Fable sort of isn't meant to survive in this world, but obviously she manages to do so. And like she's also this really skilled diver, so we sometimes get to see her like underneath the ocean. Also there's like Found Family. Next one we have is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. So Viv, I think she's an ogre, and she's a retired warrior who wants to open her own coffee shop, which is something unheard of in this world. Like no one's ever heard of coffee. But rivals get in the way of her dream, and if she wants to succeed in her new business, Viv will have to give up on her adventuring days for good. I found this like so cozy. This is like another cozy fantasy, obviously, if you couldn't tell. My favorite character in this was actually like a rat man named Thimble. He was so sweet, and he was just like baking his little cinnamon buns. Also, there's a subplot romance in here, which was really cute. Sapphic romance, love them. Next one we have is Six of Crows by Lee Bardugo. Oh my god, there was a side couple in here, and they were my absolute favorite. But anyways, Taz Brecker is a criminal prodigy and is offered the chance at a deadly heist that could make him extremely rich, but he can't do this alone, so he hires a team of skilled individuals with complex pasts to complete this mission. And we get each of their POVs, and it was so good because they each had their own little romance. My favorite couple was Jesper and Wylan. I don't know why, just the way they got to know each other and like warm up to each other was so great to me. But the other couples were also the best thing ever. Like every single couple in this book is so great. And also the heist, the way she could come up with this stuff, oh my god, this entire world is honestly the best thing ever. Next one we have is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. Our main character Jack returns to his home island when girls start disappearing. He's also a bard capable of controlling the spirits with his music, and his childhood enemy Adara intends on using that to their advantage. They work together and they hope to find the missing girls using the spirits and Jack's magic. The romance in here was kind of like obviously childhood friends to lovers, childhood enemies to lovers, and also Rebecca Ross's writing is just so addictive. Like I don't know what she puts in her books, but it's like scary. There was also like a side romance in here that I really loved for some reason. I think it was like between a wife and her husband, and they weren't able to connect, so then they had to like obviously talk to each other, and honestly they were probably my favorite romance in the book for some reason. Next one we have is Divine Rivals, also by Rebecca Ross. Iris is set on winning a promotion at the Oath Gazette, but her rival Roman doesn't make it easy. To ease her worries, she writes letters to her brother and slips them beneath her wardrobe door, where they vanish. But the one who receives her letters is Roman Kit, her rival, and he writes back anonymously, and that's how they sort of forge like a connection that will follow them to the front lines of a war between gods. Like there's a war that's happening between gods right now, it's really crazy. And also Iris's brother is like in that war, which is why she's writing letters to him. Also there's magical typewriters in this book. That was literally the main reason why I read this book in the first place, because I just wanted to know how the magical typewriters worked. The rivals to lovers in here though was so great. Also the secret identity, we always love a good secret identity letter writing trope here. Next one we have is Legendborn by Tracy Dion. So Bree, our main character, witnesses a magical demon attack her very first night on campus, and she discovers that a secret society called Legendborn hunts the creatures down. But when a Legendborn mage attempts to wipe Bree's memories, he fails and instead unlocks Bree's magic and a buried memory that has to do with her mother's death. So there's kind of like a mystery here on like what the Legendborns have to do with Bree's mother. It's obviously just Bree trying to figure out how her magic works, how she might join the society. There's also like a love triangle in here. This is like the one and only love triangle I kind of liked between like the sort of golden retriever boy and then obviously the mage who tried to wipe her memory. I'm rooting for one of them, and let's just say it's not the golden retriever one. Next one is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. So for 1,000 years the Scots slaved in misery and lived in fear. Kelsire, a former slave, discovers that he has the powers of a Mistborn, and with his new magic his goal is to kill the Lord Ruler, the king of this world, because he's like abused the slaves obviously. But even with the best crew of the underworld, Kelsire's goal seems like a long shot until he meets a half Scot orphan named Vin. And oh my god, the teacher-student relationship in this book was so great. Also I just love Kelsire's crew. I don't know, just the way that Vin got to know them. And also there's like ballroom dancing scenes in this book which you would not expect, and that's where the sort of romance starts, which is so cute. Love the romance between like Vin and then like a noble son. It was kind of like a forbidden romance because part of the plan was Vin sort of getting to know the noble world in order for like Kelsire's plan to work, but she ended up falling in love instead, which we love. Not to mention Brandon Sanderson's world are like really simple but complex at the same time, and then his magic systems are so cool because this magic system in Mistborn is based off of like metals. So it's just like you can control different metals depending on like which power you have, but like with Mistborns they can control each and every single metal, and like the metals give them different powers, so like strength, jumping ability, speed, that sort of stuff. Next one we have is The Stormcrow by Kaylin Josephson. So Princess Thea has always wanted to be a crow rider, but that dream is crushed when an enemy kingdom and kills all the crows. Tia is forced into an engagement with the enemy prince, but before her fate is sealed, she finds a crow egg. She's determined to hatch the egg and ignite a rebellion to take back her kingdom. Not gonna lie, there was kind of an unexpected romance in this book, which obviously wasn't expecting at all. It's been a while since I read this book, but I remember really enjoying it, and I am kind of wondering if there's gonna be a romance between her and like the enemy prince, but I'm not really sure, so I guess I'll find out when I read the second book. Next one we have is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. So our main character Elizabeth has always known magic and sorcerers to be dangerous, and she's determined to become a warden to protect the kingdom, but an act of sabotage releases the library's most dangerous grimoire, and Elizabeth is blamed. With no help in sight, she is forced to turn to her sworn enemy Nathaniel, a sorcerer. Elizabeth lives in a library where she oversees like grimoires and magical books and stuff, and like if you open one of those grimoires, sometimes they let out like dangerous monsters and stuff. I guess that's her sort of before training, before she can become a warden. But obviously one of the books opens and she's blamed. I did like the romance between her and Nathaniel because it was like a human and a sorcerer, sort of enemies to lovers, and then like she kind of figures out that magic isn't as dangerous as it seems when she like gets to know Nathaniel and stuff. Also the library, again, libraries seem very appropriate for fall. But anyways, that's all the books I have on my list. I should probably end this video off because it's been 40 minutes. Yeah, I hope you guys like the list. I hope you might give some of these fantasy books a chance, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.